Well, the race for Senate in Texas is over for Democrat Beto O'Rourke, but the impact that he made is expected to last far beyond this election.
That's right. O'Rourke came within 2 percentage points of unseating Republican Senator Ted Cruz. The close race captured the attention of the nation. So joining us now from Austin is Alana Rocha. She's a reporter for the Texas Tribune. Good to see you.
Good morning.
So Beto is one of the biggest names to come out of this midterm election. What does the success in Texas mean for the deep red state? I know he didn't win, but the fact that so much money was poured into Ted Cruz's campaign in such a deep red state does signal something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's a lot of factors at play here. O'Rourke being at the top of the ticket, a charismatic candidate, popular, had a real, grassroots get out the vote. 254 counties he touted, famously visiting here, all 254. He did turn out voters, and I think that you saw that. I was watching last night, we did a broadcast here at the Tribune, and as I scrolled down to the statewide offices expecting a blowout by the Republican incumbents, because a lot of them didn't even acknowledge their Democratic opponents, I saw where they were trading leads, and it was within a point at some points. So I think even, the lieutenant governor here, who didn't even acknowledge his Democratic opponent, started off his statement last night saying it's been a long night. So I think that is the O'Rourke factor, and now it's up to the Democratic Party to foster those new voters and give them something to come back for in 2020.
So where do you see Ted Cruz going from here? He gained his seat by being an outsider candidate, but then along came President Trump, and suddenly he's an insider now. Right. Clearly, the president had his back. He was down there a couple of times pushing for him. So do you see him sort of becoming closer to the president and the president's agenda, or maybe, being a little more critical? Because when you look at how close, O'Rourke was, I mean, he was in striking distance of taking Cruz's job.
Well, you look at Cruz's remarks last night in his victory speech, and he seemed to say that he wants to represent those who turned out for his opponent. He did acknowledge Beto O'Rourke's campaign, just the passion he put behind it and the hard work he put into it, and said he wanted to represent those voters as well. But then he did pivot and say that this was an assault, a potential assault on the Texas election system with Hollywood money and nationwide money coming in. But of course, we do know that Cruz had outside help as well. So it's really not clear. Like I said, in one part of his speech, it seemed like he was maybe going to toe a more moderate line potentially, and not be, wholeheartedly throwing his arms around the president and his proposals. But then he kind of pivoted and saying, we don't want to Californize our Texas. And so it's not really clear if, him and the other statewide did get the message that the electorate here could be changing and is changing.
I got a question, Alana, because obviously the national focus has been on Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz, but I'm really, really fascinated by this race in the 32nd district, where Pete Sessions, a longtime member of Congress, a district that had been historically red, upended by Colin Allred. Is that more indicative of what's going on in Texas?
Yeah, I think that is. That was in an area where Hillary Clinton narrowly beat Donald Trump in 2016, and so Democrats saw an opening there. And, this cycle, Democrats put candidates up and down the ballot. They're on congressional races, statewide races, and here in the State House, for instance, they took away, 12 seats, or added 12 seats rather, to the House. But for that race, Colin Allred fundraised really well, had some upwards of $5 million. And it also shows what weight or not the Trump administration had. We had Vice President Mike Pence come and campaign on Sessions' behalf. Of course, Sessions has the powerful chair of the House Rules Committee, and so they wanted to make sure that stayed in his hands, and it didn't seem to hold much weight as far as Pence coming to campaign for him.
I want to ask you one more question about O'Rourke. Any sort of prediction as to what happens to him next?
Yeah, he left it open-ended last night in his victory speech. I mean, the crowd went wild. I looked at one point at the feed, and he was like speaking in it looked like a punk rock concert or after the fact, with the smoke kind of dissipating. He left it open. He said, "I'll see you down the road." In past interviews with us and others, he has said, he's not looking at 2020 as far as a potential presidential candidate. And there's a lot of speculation there still, but like a lot of people have said, if he can't carry his own state, is that a good move for him to run nationwide? And so we'll see what his next moves are. Obviously, I don't think he's done. He ran a very successful campaign. He might be a stronger voice here in the Democratic Party to help foster those voters, but he's not done holding office. We'll just see what's next.
Yeah, drop that F-bomb, which was just like a rock concert. Alana, let me ask you real quick before you go, last 30 seconds. The border troops, that whole exercise, that caused sort of an uproar because it was happening in Beto O'Rourke's hometown. Did that impact this race at all?
It's hard to say. They sent out Border Patrol sent out a release on Monday that they would be doing this crowd control exercise yesterday morning. A bunch of reporters, including our own, showed up, and then it was abruptly canceled. No statement. So it's not really clear what effect that might have had on turnout. We know, O'Rourke at least was leading in early voting, and a lot of people there voted early. So not really clear on the impact.
All right, Alana Rocha, thank you so much as always.
Thank you.